right. Well, once again, good morning, everybody. My name is Stephanie Adams. I am one of the instructional designers within the Department of Cyber Learning. I see a lot of familiar names on our participant list here, so thank you for joining. If you haven't worked with me, I'm sure you've worked with one of my wonderful colleagues here in the Department of Cyber Learning. We are the main support for Blackboard on campus, but we are also helping you design and develop your courses. Today's focus, we're going to talk about Blackboard Ultra, of course, but more specifically, we're going to be talking about setting up your gradebook. Real quick, as always, a few housekeeping items. I, of course, am recording the webinar today. So by the end of the day, you will receive a link to this recording. So if you miss anything, if I go too fast, or you just want to revisit anything that we did in our session today, you'll receive this link. You can watch it, share it, do whatever you wish with it. I will also send instructional documentation that corresponds with everything we talk about today. So you will have it in video format and you will also have it in written documentation format. I am going to pause periodically for questions, but if you do have any questions throughout the session before one of those natural pauses, go ahead and send a chat over in that chat window. I do have it up on one of my monitors here, so feel free to put any of your questions or comments in that chat window. I will monitor that throughout the webinar. And of course, you can feel free to come off mic and just verbally ask your question or your comment for us today. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our training objectives for our webinar today. So again, today we're focusing on the Blackboard Gradebook. So first and foremost, we're going to access and navigate the gradebook. I want to make sure you have a nice understanding of how the gradebook is set up and where everything is located. We're then going to add an in-class assignment column. So a column where you can put grades for something that your students maybe do in class or a presentation, something of that nature. We're then going to kind of set up some of those additional settings within our gradebook. So we're going to create grade categories and we're going to adjust our grading scale or grading schema. And then the last thing we'll do is we're going to set up your overall grade column. Now, regardless if you set up your overall grade by just calculating the points in your course, or if you do something along the lines of weighted categories, we will cover both of those options for you today. Now, of course, there is a lot you can do in the gradebook, just like everything else in Ultra, everything else that you've seen throughout this webinar session. So we're just going to cover kind of the basics of the gradebook. I am going to sprinkle in some best practices here and there, but I want you to think of this as a process. So we're going to navigate the gradebook. We're going to set up a few of these items, set up your overall grade. And then once you're looking to do maybe some more advanced options in that gradebook, you'll come back to us and we'll show you how to do that. All right, I want to go ahead and pause here. Just want to see if there's any questions with our training objectives or any questions in terms of something you want to make sure you see today in your gradebook, any specific grading tasks that you know that you do or that you know you did in Blackboard Original, anything that you want to make sure you see today that I can go ahead and make a note of before we jump in. Again, I have that chat window open, or just come off mic and let me know any questions you have before we jump in. All right, so let's go ahead first and take a tour of the gradebook. Again, I just want to give you a nice overview of where everything is located. So I am in my Blackboard course here. To access the gradebook, we're going to access this top navigation bar and we're going to select Gradebook. Now there are several different views of the Ultra Gradebook, and let's just quickly go through these and what I like to use each view for. So this first view, you can see in the upper left corner, is the gradable items view. It's kind of a list view. So this is where it's going to list all of your course assessments. You'll be able to see a couple of different columns. What category that assessment is associated with, the due date of that assessment, the grading status, and also if you need to post any grades. Here's what I like to use this particular view for. I like to use this to check my due dates. So at the beginning of each semester, before the course opens, I like to come down here and make sure all the due dates are accurate. We don't have any 2023 or 2022 dates just lingering through there. And over on the right-hand side, this is where you can also reorder your columns. So you can see these two arrows all the way on the right-hand side. This is where we can click and drag our columns to reorder them. And the last reason I like to use this particular view is it lets you know what you need to grade. So you can see if you've completed all of the grading or if you still have some items to grade. So when it says 4 to grade, that means I have 4 individuals to grade. So that's why I like to use this gradable items or this list view. I like to check due dates and move my items around. The next view, or the grades view, this is going to look very familiar to you. This is that typical gradebook look and feel that we're used to. So we have our students down the left-hand side of the screen, our assignments across the top. This is also where we can view grades and where we can adjust grades for our students. And then that last kind of gradebook view option up here in the upper left corner is the student view. The student view is really great to see a list of all of your students, their overall grade, and that last access date. So especially if you're teaching a fully online course, this last access date is going to be very beneficial to see, are your students actually engaging in the course? So real quick, in that gradebook, we have 3 different views: the gradable items view, or that list view, the grades view, which is our typical gradebook that we're used to, and that students view, which is just going to show us a list of our students, the overall grade, and again, that ever important last access date. A few other items I just want to point out in the gradebook. Regardless of the view, in the upper right corner, we're going to have some options here. So we can search the gradebook. Of course, I only have 7 students in here, so I really don't need to search for a particular student. But of course, if you have a large roster of students and you just want to view one particular student, you can go ahead and use that search option. We can also go ahead and filter our gradebook as well. So if you're just looking for a specific assignment category, if you're just looking for a specific assignment itself, a specific group of students, you can go ahead and use that filter option. And then we have the option to download and upload to the gradebook as well. And then this last option here is that settings gear. We're going to jump into that in a little bit. So again, upper right corner, again, regardless of which view we're in, we're going to have some of those options here. So we're going to have that search where we can search the gradebook for one specific student or even one particular assignment. We can use the filter option to filter down quickly as well. And then of course we can download the gradebook to Excel, and then we will jump into that settings gear momentarily. Quick pause here. I just want to see if there's any questions with just what we're seeing in the gradebook, those different views that we looked at, or some of those different search options.
Stephanie, on the I'm looking in my class for fall and I don't have the filter option. Could it be because it's not available yet, or?
Are you in, so it's only in this grades view.
Yeah, I'm in there.
You're in there and you don't see the filter?
No.
So most likely it's because we don't have any assessments or categories yet.
Okay.
There's no gradable items. I'm assuming it's because there's really nothing to filter.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but just want to double check. Thanks.
You're welcome. And we do have another question in the chat. In the students view, we don't have an overall grade. So most likely it's because you don't have an overall grade set up yet. Absolutely, Bob. So most likely once we have data in there, we set up that overall grade, that's going to show for us. Any other immediate questions with what we're seeing here in the gradebook, those different views or different options? All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next objective. We are going to add an in-class assignment column. So When you're building your assessments in Blackboard, whether it's a test, an assignment, a discussion board, anything that's graded, those will automatically create columns in your gradebook. But if you're teaching in that traditional in-person instructional method, you might have assignments that don't necessarily live in Blackboard. Maybe there's a presentation that your students need to do in class. Maybe there's something on campus you want them to attend and you want them to get a grade for attending. Maybe there's something they just need to do in class, hand you, present, and you want to put that grade in Blackboard. So what we're going to go ahead and do is add what I like to call an in-class assignment column. So we are in our gradebook here, and you can add a column in that gradable items list view or this grades view. I'm going to go ahead and just add it in this grades view. You're going to locate where in your gradebook you want to add the column. So notice as I hover in between these columns here, I get that ever popular purple plus sign. We're going to go ahead and choose that purple plus sign where we want to add this column and choose add item. We're going to go ahead and just work top to bottom. So we're going to name our item. Of course, name this something meaningful for your students, whatever the assignment is called, whatever it's titled in your syllabus. We'll go ahead and adjust the visibility of this column. Do we want to keep it hidden right now for our students, or do we want them to see the column? We can add a due date. The due date will show for your students in their Blackboard calendar. So even though this is something that's not due in Blackboard, they would still see it in their calendar as something upcoming, or we can remove it altogether. We'll go ahead and award our points for this presentation. And we can assign it to a category. So by default, anything that you create in the gradebook is going to be just assigned to this assignment category. Categories are great for you to group related items together in the gradebook. And we're going to talk about those just momentarily. But for right now, I'm just going to assign this actually to the presentation category. Optional, you can add a description for this particular column. And then select Save in the lower right corner. So here is our topic presentation column that we just created. So once again, let's recap those steps. If we have something in class or in person that our students need to complete, and it's not necessarily in Blackboard that they need to turn anything in, and I still want to give them a grade in Blackboard, we're going to create what's called an in-class assignment column or a manual column. So to do that, all we did was find the purple plus sign for wherever we wanted to insert the column, choose add item, name the item, adjust the visibility settings. We set the due date or removed it. We adjusted the points, assigned a grade category, and then added an optional description. We then selected Save in the lower right corner. And our column is now created for us. So now my students have come to class, they have given their topic presentations, I've listened to them all, I have their grades. I'm going to go ahead now and open my gradebook and simply award them points in the gradebook. So I would simply come here and post all of my grades for all of my students. Now I'm just using my keyboard to enter in their grades, and I'm actually just hitting enter to move down the line. Now, one change from Blackboard Original to Blackboard Ultra is that anything that you grade in the Ultra gradebook, you do actually have to post the grades. So even though these grades are here, unless it says posted, the students will not see the grades. So I can either come in here individually and post the grade, or I can come to the very top and post all of the grades. Folks, any questions with creating this manual column for an in-class assignment or how to enter grades for that particular column? All right, I'm getting a thumbs up. Looks like we're good to go. Let's go ahead and keep moving through our objectives here. So let's go ahead and talk about kind of setting up some of those additional settings in our gradebook. And the first thing we're going to talk about is creating a grade category. So each time you create an assignment or a graded item in your course, whether it's an assignment, a test, a discussion board, it's associated with a category. Now you can use these categories to group related items together. So we can group all of our tests together, we can group all of our quizzes together, we can group all the discussions together, and it allows us to really customize how we grade those items. Now Blackboard does come, you're going to see, with some default grade categories, but we can also add our own categories to really customize the gradebook. Now, categories are helpful if you calculate your overall grade using weighted categories. So if you are somebody that assigns 20% to all of the assignments, 15% to all of the 10 discussion boards, that's where those grade categories are going to become very important. So let's go ahead and talk about how we set those categories up. So again, I am in my gradebook here. And again, regardless of which gradebook view I am in, I'm always going to have that settings icon in the upper right corner. So I'm going to select that settings icon. It's going to open up our gradebook settings. We are going to scroll down to the grade categories section. Now you can see there are default categories already built into Ultra for you. If some of these don't work for your particular course, or you just want to name them something different, you could just create your own grade categories. Very simple. All we do is select a new category. We'll go ahead and name our category. Call this participation. And you can see that category has been added. We can edit it, we can delete it, and we can add additional ones as well. Once we are satisfied with our grade categories, we'll close that settings panel, brings us right back to that gradebook. So as you're creating your assignments, or after your assignments have been created, you'll want to make sure everything is associated with the correct category. So I can actually just do this right within my gradebook. I can go ahead and edit my discussion boards. I can edit my tests. I can edit any of those assignments that I've created, access the settings, and just double check that it is associated with the correct grade category. So this is something I would just simply do if I wanted to use those categories to set up my overall grade. Just make sure everything's actually associated with the correct grade category. So again, if you were looking to utilize grade categories, again, this is helpful if you calculate your overall grade using weighted categories, weighted percentages. You're going to access that settings icon. You're going to scroll down to grade categories. You're going to select a new grade category, add some additional ones in here if you need to. Close the settings panel, and then simply double check all of your assessment items and those additional grade columns if you've created any, and make sure they're assigned to the correct category. Folks, any questions with grade categories? All right, one more setting I want to go ahead and make sure is set up in your gradebook, and that is your grading scale or grading schema that you are using. So again, in our gradebook here, regardless of which view you were in, we are going to go ahead and access that settings gear in the upper right corner. And at the very top, we're going to select Manage Grade Schemas. Now, this is something that I want everybody to check in their Blackboard courses, because sometimes there are grade schemas left over from previous courses that were copied into your course. There might be grade schemas left over from Blackboard Original. So you might have multiple listed here. You're going to want to make sure that what you see here on the screen is matching what you have in your syllabus. So you can see this A is reading 95 to 100. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this and just make sure it's matching my particular syllabus. Since there's really no standard grade scale across the university, we'll want to make sure that this matches what you're providing to your students. So I'm going to go ahead and in the main area here, you'll notice these 3 dots for each letter grade. That's where you can go ahead and adjust the scale. And it looks like it actually adjusted the rest of those for me. But I can also delete them, edit them, and kind of start completely over. I can also delete this entire grade scheme, I believe. Maybe it won't let me delete one entire one, but I can add additional ones. So if you have different grading scales for different assignments, you can go ahead and add additional grade schemes as well. So once we are happy with our grade scheme, we will close this window, brings us right back to that gradebook settings panel. We can close that. So again, all we did to kind of confirm, edit that grade schema is in the upper right corner. We went to that gradebook settings panel, selected manage grade schemas, and just make sure that we have that did not save. Look at that. All right, let's see. Make sure we have the right one set. Right. So we do have a question coming in the chat. Is the grade schema for the final grade or individual grades or both? So it can really be for all of your items. It can be, like I said, you can have multiple grade schemas set up here. So I can actually have this particular grade schema set up for a few of my assignments and then use this particular one for my overall grade. Really, when you're setting up your grade columns, you'll be able to choose which grade schema you want to use. So to answer your question, both and either one. All right, let's go ahead now and jump into kind of the bulk of what we want to do in our grade book, and that's set up our overall grade column. So that overall grade column is going to show your students basically their performance within your course. Now there's 2 ways you can set up your overall grade column. We can set it up by using total points. So if you just calculate all of your assessments in your course, you total them up, and that's what their grade is out of. We're going to do that first and show you how to set up your overall grade using total points. If you calculate your overall grade using weighted categories or weighted percentages, we'll show you that next. So we will show you again how to set up those percentages for each of those categories for your overall grade. So depending on how you set up your grade book, you're going to pay attention to either what I'm doing first or what I'm doing second. So let's go ahead and jump into calculating that overall grade column. So we're going to jump into our grade book. We're going to go to our grades column here. And I already kind of have an overall grade column set up here. It looks like it's out of 26.66 points. Of course, that doesn't seem correct for my course here. We're going to go ahead and select that column heading and choose Edit. At the very top of the screen, this is where we're going to tell the software, are we calculating this by points or weighted? Again, first, we're going to calculate this by points. So I'm going to make sure that's highlighted. What I'm seeing on the screen here is I'm seeing all of my assessment items, how many points they are worth, and at the very bottom, I will see a calculation total of those points. So notice on the screen here, all of my assessment items are grouped by category. And you can see if I expand that category, I'll see the individual items. So I can see I have 5 discussion boards here, all worth 20 points. That looks correct according to my syllabus. I have 2 quizzes here worth 20 points or worth 10 points each. I have 2 tests. And I can see I have some group items, I have homework, I have a journal. And it looks like everything is here that needs to be here. And my syllabus does tell my students that I have a total of 375 points. If I had anything in here, maybe a leftover attendance column, or just maybe a leftover assignment that I forgot to remove, I can simply exclude it from the calculation. So I can, even though there's 0 points here, I can exclude them just to make sure I get to my point total. Once everything looks good in terms of our total, we're going to head over to the right-hand side. This right-hand side is basically, how do we want our students to see the total points column? So first and foremost, do we want them to see it? So we can choose to uncheck show to students and then check it when we're ready to show it to them. We can also display the overall grade in a specific way. So do we want them to see the number of points they have out of 375? Do we want the software to convert that to a percentage? Or do we want to use one of those grade schemes and show them a letter grade that they will receive? And then this top checkbox here is going to be, do we want this basically to show a running total or a total out of all of their points for the course? Once we have the points set up, we're just going to select save in the lower right corner. We'll confirm that calculation. Close the window to go back to our grade column here. Now we can see the grade column is out of 375, but I told the software I only want them students to see out of what's been graded. So you can see some students have 230 points graded so far. Some students have 250 points graded so far, and I can see that takes into consideration this last column here. So again, if you calculate your overall grade by totaling your points together, you're going to select that overall grade column at the top, choose edit. At the very top of the screen, you're going to choose points. You'll make sure all of your assessments are there, make sure they are correct, exclude any that maybe are in there by mistake. Check your points in the lower right corner. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll go ahead and adjust those kind of presentation style settings for how your students want to view the grades. And then you'll select save in the lower right corner for any changes you have made. So that is calculating grades by total points. Going to head to that chat window real quick. We have some questions coming through. First question, can you have a mix of points and weighted grades? Technically, yes. So at the very top of the screen here in the upper left corner, notice we are in that points section. We're going to move to that weighted section next. There is an advanced section. So this is something that we can work with you kind of one-on-one and basically build your calculation within this window here. So this is where we would kind of go through and build how you're calculating your overall grade. And that's where the mix of points and weighted categories comes in. So yes, but Rose, we can work with you one-on-one to get that set up for you. Another question coming through, can you show how to remove categories again? Absolutely. So let's say, for example, I am in this screen here and I have 375 points. And for this particular example, let's just say my course is actually out of 300. So there's something in here that's not supposed to be in here. And as I'm looking, I see, well, I do have that group work that's 75 points. Maybe this is in here by mistake because I did that last semester We just didn't get to it this semester. I'm going to go ahead and choose this circle with the line through it to simply exclude it from the total calculation. Scroll down. I am now good to go at 300 points. We're going to select save to save that calculation and close this window. Quick question coming through. Where is that advanced tab? So we're in that overall grade column. And in the upper left corner, you should see points weighted in advanced, Bob. All right. So now we're going to switch gears, and now I'm going to talk to all the folks on the call that calculate their overall grade using weighted categories. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this particular example here. Sometimes it's easier to kind of have a realistic example to go off of. So this is what I'm showing my students in my syllabus. I have 5 discussion posts that are worth 20% of their final grade. Their 2 exams are worth 40%. They have a journal, 3 quizzes, and class participation. So this is going to be my guide for how I'm setting up my overall grade. So in our gradebook here, we're going to choose that overall grade category and choose Edit. At the top left corner, this time we're going to choose Weighted. Now the screen looks very similar to what we saw previously. So we're going to see all of our categories and of course in those categories, all of our assessment items. Now by default, let me just get this back to what the default looks like. If you haven't come in here and set anything up yet, by default, the system is simply going to take 100% and just award it out to every single category within Blackboard. Now, of course, as we saw, there's some default categories in the software that we're never going to use. Recapping the steps is always a good idea. So we are in our gradebook. We're going to click overall grade column. We're going to choose edit. Upper left corner, instead of having that points selected, we're going to have weighted selected. Now again, the screen looks pretty similar to what we just saw when we were setting up our grade by total points. And what's happening here is the system is simply taking that 100% and it's just dispersing it out between all of the grade categories in our course. Now, of course, we know there's grade categories in here that we probably aren't going to use. So that's where my syllabus comes into play. So I can see that my discussion category is going to be worth 20%. So over on the right-hand side, next to that discussion category, I'm going to change it to 20. I do like to use this lock feature because I know that that one is done and I don't want it to change as I'm changing the other items. So again, looking at my syllabus, I can see that my 2 exams are here in the test category. So exam 1 and exam 2, and those are worth 40% of the final grade. I'm going to go ahead and lock that as well. Now, this is where those categories become very important. For example, let's say you had 3 exams. We know that 1 is missing. We would have to go find that exam in the course and make sure it's associated with the test category. So that way it's associated with our 40 points. Moving down my syllabus, I have a journal, which I can see is right here, and that's worth 15%. I have 3 quizzes, and it looks like there's only 2 here. So I would have to simply go find my other quiz, and this might just not be set up with my particular example, and I would go ahead and assign that to the quiz category. And then my participation I have worth 10%. So we'll go ahead and assign that to this homework category. So you will notice now I have 100% in the bottom. Now there might be times where if I don't have these items locked, as I'm changing these percentages, there might be percentages down here, even though there's no items here. So again, that's where that exclude button comes into play. It kind of zeroes everything out, and we have the correct percentages. And we can see why that lock option is very important. Tests over 40. Quizzes are worth 15. And our journal and our homework. Perfect. So of course, this screen is going to be very specific to your course. But basically what you're doing is making sure that the correct percentages are assigned to the correct categories. And then within those categories, all the assignments are correct. Just like we did previously, over on the right-hand side, we can choose how we want that overall grade to display to our students. And then we'll select Save in the lower right corner. We'll confirm that calculation. Close that window, brings us right back to that gradebook. We have a great question that came through. Bob, I'm very glad you asked that because they just added this feature into Ultra. Bob's question, within a category, do all entries have equal weight? If you want them to. So we're going to edit that grade category or that overall grade. We are in our weighted section here. Notice right above our categories, we can choose to have the gradable items within the category weighted proportionally or equally. I think this was just added within the last month or so. I know this was a feature with an original that everybody's been waiting for, so you can go ahead and choose that, whichever one you need to choose. All right, folks, what questions do we have about setting up your overall grade, whether calculating it by points or calculating it by weighted categories? All right, so just to recap kind of everything we did today, we navigated the gradebook. We talked about where everything is located. We added one of those in-class assignment columns or a manual column. We created grade categories. We adjusted our grading scale to make sure it matched what was in our syllabus. And then we set up our overall grade by points or by weighted categories. As you're looking at this list, folks, any questions with anything that we covered? All right, we do have a question coming in. How do we drop a lowest quiz grade for each student? Great question. So we're going to head into our overall grade. We're going to choose Edit. And this is going to be specific to how your overall grade is calculated. And if you are calculating your overall grade by weighted categories, under our quiz section here, we are going to edit calculation details. We get a panel that's going to open up on the right-hand side. We're going to enable, and we are going to drop one score. And then we'll choose continue. And we can see here, we've now dropped that score. All right. Folks, the gradebook is very specific to your course and how you calculate your grades. Again, today, I just wanted to show you the basics of getting that gradebook set up, the basic ways that you can calculate that overall grade. If you're looking at your syllabus and you're looking at your assessments and you're saying, I'm going to need some help calculating this, or I need some help putting this in the gradebook, that's why we're here. We are here to help you kind of set that up and see what's going to be the best way to put that in the gradebook and, of course, do all those calculations. As I briefly showed, there is that advanced calculation screen. So if you're looking again at your syllabus and you're saying, what she showed through points and weighted categories is not going to work for me, that advanced calculation screen can most likely accomplish what you do in your course. So again, reach out to us and we can work with you one-on-one in your course. I want to thank everybody for joining this afternoon. Again, I did see some familiar faces, so it's good to see everybody. If you haven't worked with me in our office, I'm sure you worked with one of my lovely colleagues here. Again, we are here to not only to help you use Blackboard, learn Blackboard, but we're here to really help you with that course design and development aspect. So please reach out to us with any additional questions you have. I believe we have a few more, maybe 2 more webinar sessions this week. If you've registered for those, we look forward to seeing you again. If you have any other questions, please reach out to us. Everyone enjoy the rest of their day and have a great week. Thank you.